p.m. Can we have a pledge of allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Fire evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency, you could exit the door in the back of the auditorium room, or you could go out the door to my left, down the stairs, and away from the building. Roll call, please.
Donna Corbin-Sabinski.
Here.
Virginia Higley. Here. Carrie Ann Howe.
Here.
Robert Hendrickson.
Here.
Kevin Zorda.
Here.
Nancy Martin.
Here.
Sean Dean.
Absent.
Ann Collins.
Here.
So there's 7 of us, right, voting. Okay. Public participation. We have nobody in the audience, so we'll move ahead. Sean's the alternate, yeah. So we have all full-time members. Agent comments. Anybody to my right have any comments or questions they'd like to? Yep. And to my left?
Just one thing. And I had to remind my sister-in-law that we cannot discuss anything outside of meetings. That's called ex parte communication, and it's very, 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 very bad. Mm-hmm. So, especially our new commissioners. So one of your friends says, gee, I see you got XYZ application coming up. What do you think on it? What are you going to do? You have to say, I can't discuss it.
That goes for social media and everything else. We really shouldn't be commenting on anything or opening emails or any of that. We just forwarded along to Georgie any emails that you get that for that. What else? Oh, and even if the application hasn't come before us yet, but we think it may come before us, then you still do not want to talk about it.
Right.
Or have any conversation with people regarding it. Or even if the application's already come to us and gone past us, we still would not want to be discussing it because they could come back. We could end up getting them back. So you're better off just saying, sorry, I can't talk about it, and be done with it, and don't put anything on communications anywhere. That's really important. Anybody else? The other thing I wanted to talk about is deep training. I actually completed mine this week. Yay! My online class. There's 8 different modules. They say it takes an hour a module. I don't know. I did it over different days, so I don't really know how long it took, but it's good.
That's the same one I did like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's kind of, but it was a nice refresher.
Updated, though.
Yeah, it's updated, so it's a nice refresher course. Georgie, do you want to know when we take them? So you have any kind of record of it, or?
Sure, yeah. You can forward me your certificate when you get it, and I can add it to the
File?
K Drive. Yep,
Okay,
I'll
thanks.
send you my old one.
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay.
I don't have one. I took it when it was in person.
Oh, okay. So you may want to take it again. Next on the agenda is correspondence. I have none. Approval of minutes from February 15th.
I move that we approve the minutes for February 15th, 2022.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Anybody have any comments? No. Can we have roll call, please?
Donna Corbin-Sabinski.
Yes.
Virginia Higley. Yes. Carrie Ann Howe.
Yes.
Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Ann Collins.
Yes.
7 in favor, motion passes. Next is our town attorney report. We did receive one. It was on our desk today, dated February 25th for our information. Next is continued public hearings. We have none. New public hearings is none. Now we're old business, IW 636, 59 Cottage Grove, application for a wetland permit to replace a seawall. David Vesky, owner applicant, map 80, lot 180, R33 zone. Do we have any,
So,
did we want to say anything?
so the
Good, well, hold on one second.
oh, sorry.
I'd like to recuse myself, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry.
No,
George.
no, you're
Go
fine.
ahead.
Okay, so we reached out to the applicant many times, a long time ago, to give him a notification of when the meeting was and when he would have to submit the requested plans. And I've had no contact with him, neither have any of my other staff people that I work with. Therefore, his application remains incomplete without the requested plans, and he is out of extension requests.
Okay, so today's the last day.
Yes, today would be the last day. Technically, his extension would end in like 5 days, but we don't meet until the 15th. So statutorily, he's out of time.
Okay.
Then I think at this time, I would like to propose a motion to deny the application based on it being incomplete,
Second.
Pardon.
You got to do it in positive.
Without
You got to say it.
without prejudice.
All motions made have to be in the affirmative. They can't be a motion to deny.
To move to
Approve it.
I move to
Approve.
approve
The application.
the application,
IW 636.
without prejudice.
IW 636-59 Cottage Road, application for a wetlands permit to replace a seawall, David Vesey, owner applicant, map 80, lot 180, R33 zone. Date of original, is that DOR?
Yeah.
Second.
Yeah, that's fine. Ginny seconded it?
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any discussion? Well, I think because it's an incomplete application, I'm going to vote no.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
know
he's
we-
been given opportunities. You tried to work with him, and
Staff worked with him as well, and he, apparently he's not moving forward with it.
Right. And it's an incomplete application, so.
Yep.
Any other discussion?
no.
Can we have roll call, please?
Don and Corbin Sabinski.
No.
Virginia Higley, no. Carrie Ann Howe.
No.
Robert Hendrickson.
No.
Kevin Zorda.
I vote no because of the incomplete status of the application.
Nancy Martin.
I abstain.
Abstain, okay. So 5 noes, 1 abstain, motion failed, right. Yeah, motion failed. Yeah, Nancy abstained and Ann recused herself. Okay. Yeah. Next on our agenda is the POCD Implementation Strategies Review.
I'll make a motion that we remove it from the table.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call?
Donna Corbin Sabinski.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Carrie Ann Howe.
Yes.
Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Ann Collins.
Yes.
Motion passes, it's removed from the table, so.
Okay, so where we left off back from December was the current POCD goals that is in the copy that you have now from 2011 to the ideas you were coming up with for our new POCD. The new POCD has just been delayed by COVID. COVID's really taken a hit on people doing surveys and getting the required information for our consultant. So we hope to have it finished by September, and we're in the final stages almost. So the next part is to figure out how you're going to accomplish these goals. And I've kind of given you a nice skeleton to help get started for implementation strategies. So if you'd like to discuss that.
Yeah, go through them individually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
You're on the committee. Give us an update on
I
that.
am. So the ideas that we came up with were to, number one, educate the residents about the importance of wetlands areas, raise awareness of the importance of wetlands, and suggestion of maybe school education events, things like that. Georgie, I know you're kind of started, I don't know if you completed the brochure yet, and you have a draft kind of version that you've been working on.
Yep, I have a draft version. Trying to get some relevant information from the state because I figured they would have some good advice. So
Excellent.
still in the works.
So I think that's a great beginning to start with that. It's kind of easy to get out there and maybe something that can be even put out there with all applications and things like that, so people can get a little bit more educated as they do this.
Kevin, is that something we can use the library for too? Is that something,
Oh, absolutely.
resource center
Yep.
right there or something?
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't see anything about the libraries in there, so I didn't know if that was an option.
So for that first goal, I recommended an implementation strategy to read as the town of Enfield should educate residents about the significance of inland wetlands and watercourses. It should promote proper development around wetlands and the upland review area escarpments. That's just a draft to get you thinking about how you want it to read, how you'd like to go about proposing that idea.
Yeah, and I will say from the meetings, the PLCD meetings, what the intent to do is the current PLCD is very wordy. There's a lot to read, and kind of the idea is to bring that down a little bit and to make it more concise using bullets and things like that. So it's a little bit easier to read, and you don't have to go through all these things. It's right there for you.
That's a good idea.
Well, when it comes to education, I know she's probably crazy mad busy, but Darcy Winther at DEEP is an excellent resource. Maybe reach out to her, see if she can set up something to do like 2-3 times a year, a public, town hall meeting type thing. Hey, come on in and let's talk about the wetlands and, what you got going on in your town and, that kind
So
of thing.
that's a great point to bring up because the Agricultural Commission just did something similar where they're having the president of the Connecticut Farm Bureau Association come out to town tomorrow night to give a public presentation on the 490 program. So that's definitely something the Wetlands Commission can consider putting on in the future for an educational resource.
Excellent.
And we do have a lot of other resources available to us, too. CACOAC, there's Casio,
Yep.
the Connecticut Association of Wetland Scientists.
Yep. I was just going to say the scientists.
And I'm wondering if, because we do have 2 lakes in Enfield, there's already established 5 lakes in Enfield, sorry, 2 larger lakes in Enfield, that there are already established boards there that we could reach out to them and perhaps set up something at their annual meeting or at a special meeting of those districts / associations, and disseminate information that way as well.
Absolutely.
More outreach versus asking them to come in.
So that's a really great example to include in, especially with some of the inconsistencies we've been dealing with lately with the lake districts and regarding wetlands regulations and proper permitting. So that would definitely help with outreach and educational resources.
Excellent.
I was going to say, I don't recall.
All right, so I'm a stickler. It's 1 lake and 4 ponds.
Yeah. It could be even something where maybe we dedicate certain meetings, 1 quarterly that's on our agenda.
Right.
Something that we present. Yeah. Especially because it's televised. You can ask someone to come in and do a presentation.
Yeah.
You can definitely hire a consultant, like a professional in the field, to
Yeah.
come speak at presentations, write up some kind of letter to be read, a new topic every month or so, or every season. So
Yep.
you could definitely come up with some ideas.
Maybe something that's more, pertinent to, how, wetland are delineated and what
Right.
makes a wetland, because that's very confusing to a lot of folks. Oh, I don't see any water. There's no water there. It's not a wetland. Well, it's the soil that makes it a wetland. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
to get people to understand those things and then it's not us just saying that, it's the state, and those things. So to have someone that as a professional,
Say that.
to present that I think that'd be helpful. And then maybe one of them could be even someone from the department discussing what the steps are for the permitting process. So you can go through it rather than someone having to read it. You can explain it to them and put that out there.
That's a great one.
Yeah, those are excellent.
Well, also the cutting of the trees and the
Yeah.
forestry. And,
Yeah. There's so many
there's some
different things. Yeah.
People have a right, as of right activities compared
I guess
to.
the most inquiries I get a day regarding wetlands are, can I cut down this tree?
Right.
So trees would definitely be
Yeah.
a great point to expand upon,
Right,
and probably farming.
right.
So
Excellent.
Yeah, very good.
All right, so number 2 is establish a wetlands restoration plan / creation plan. And the implementation strategy for this is to create some kind of guidebook to assist developers. This may require some kind of guidebook drafting using the state information for wetlands. The town of Enfield should create a local guidebook based off wetlands data, resources, and state resources to assist developers and property owners for wetlands creation, restoration, or mitigation procedures. Hiring outside professionals may help in creating such a guidebook. This would benefit the wetlands areas in the town of Enfield. For this, I will mention when a number of years ago when I was at UConn in the landscape design program there, one of the projects that we had to do is we actually traveled down to Mystic, and it was for their zoning board, we did a booklet just like this with what they should look for in terms of buffers and things like that. So that might be something you might want to reach out to UConn or another school to that could be done as a project that would save the town a lot of money.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say,
mean,
this is an extremely expensive proposition
Yeah.
of hiring
It's-
professionals.
So the Historic District Commission did something similar to this, which is I think where we got our idea back last year. They just hired a historic consultant and they got a grant to do the guidebook. So that's always something we can look at too to help us afford a consultant and afford publishing copies of however big the guidebook will be. And it worked out very successfully with the Historic District Commission, and they have a beautiful new guidebook.
Nice. So we might want to put that on here is identify state or federal
Grants.
grants that might be available to implement this.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question because a couple of these, we talk about money and hiring consultants.
Nope, this is
We don't have a lot
good.
of
It's
money.
part of the how you're going to implement a strategy, and grants and fundraising is definitely a way to go about it.
Good.
So,
Does the town have a good grant writer?
yes, very.
Oh, good.
So, I mean, I think that's a pretty, creating the guidebook is definitely helpful, but I don't know that in itself is creating a restoration plan.
Right.
So it's mostly just like, I guess it would mostly be suggestions like and good environmental practices to follow if a developer wanted to think about doing creation plan. Like, for example, when we had 190 Elm Street and they were proposing their creation mitigation plan, they actually had professionals who were knowledge in that field and were able to come up with it without help of a municipal guidebook or something like that. So it definitely varies by applicant. But
Well, I think it's almost, if we're going to create a restoration plan, we almost need to identify how much of the wetlands has been taken away over the last 10 years. And
like a fact sheet.
yeah, a fact sheet, how much has been taken away. So, how much do we need to create? And, how much do we need to mitigate the destruction of further wetlands? And that might be helpful in guiding, especially our commission in determining what applications we approve based
Right.
on how much that they might be impacting.
Right. And I think it would depend upon the property in that too, for the
Yeah.
restoration.
Yep.
It's not going to be cookie cutter.
Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do is if you come across a grant or an application that you would like to apply for, you can apply for it as chair of the commission. I know we've had Agricultural Commission and Conservation Commission do that a lot. And they just ask the grant writer here in town for verification and additional details. So that's always a possibility if you wanted to do that too.
That's right.
So number 3 is establish new wetlands town map. So,
Yes.
updating that is certainly a challenge. And
So we just had a regional GIS meeting last week with CROG, and they announced they are doing new flyovers, and they're working on coming up with that strategy. So we hope to have a regional database coming out pretty soon. They're working on like initial data layers and what we want to include and what towns want to be more involved and stuff like that. So, and then also, we can also update the wetlands map as new applications come in that have flagged wetlands by a soil scientist. So the practice has been, if an application has wetlands on the property, if their soil scientist report shows an increase in wetlands, we don't usually require them to do a map amendment. However, if it shows a decrease in wetlands, then we require them to do a map amendment. And we don't have a lot of map amendments here on file that have had an increase or a decrease in wetlands. So we definitely are implementing that more in the office this year, and we should have a lot more as they come in.
I know we had a couple over the years.
Yeah.
We had about
question.
4 or
What'd you
5.
do with them?
Yeah.
They're still there.
So I guess this is a good question. If there is a map amendment, or not an amendment, but if they do a delineation and it does increase, and they don't do a map, an application to amend that, can we do that? Just
That's mostly why it would just be in our data. We do have a couple of applications that are like that, and we just haven't put it onto the mapping because IT hasn't done new mapping layers for GIS yet. So we hope to have that improved as our new town GIS comes out. We're doing a second test run next week.
So I know this is a harder part of this, but I think it's actually maybe even more important than just identifying wetlands is the value of those wetlands. So, doing a
Whether it's inactive and
right, yeah, what the actual value of those wetlands, because we know, the mall is all wetlands, but what's the value of that parking lot now? It's zero.
Zero.
So I think identifying those
And a lot of the homes
Yeah.
have been built.
exactly.
So that will definitely help with the part that you said, how much do we actually need to create and is
Exactly.
it worth it? And a lot of properties in Enfield that are built on top of wetlands were before 1972, and then the town didn't even adopt wetland regulations until 1974. So a lot of properties were built in the late 60s, and we always come across that problem in the office when somebody comes in like, oh, well, I can't develop this, but this person's all in the wetlands. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, what's the year that it was built? So
Yeah.
it would definitely be a good idea to include.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of overlap in these for sure.
Yep. This is just to get you thinking, you
Yep.
know. You still got some time to come up with this. And then whatever you come up with, I rewrite out for you to have a better read for the next meeting. But these are great. It's a great start.
So the next one is create a wetlands resource pamphlet. So we've already discussed that. And actually it is in here, this will help maximize economic and ecological benefits
Yes.
from Enfield. So that ties into doing that. Number 5 is develop a long-term sustainable wetlands program. And so what you have here is, needs implementation strategies.
I couldn't come up with anything. I was having a hard time with that one.
So, let's see here. So one of the ones that that is in the old one is streamline the inland wetlands and watercourses review process.
That's what we're doing.
Right.
So that's goal reached.
Yeah. So I think this developing a long-term sustainable wetlands program.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah, is doing this whole thing, but also, if you do that part where we determine how much wetlands have been lost, how much we want to save, what do we want to convert, back, that's kind of that long-term goal.
Kevin, can we add like the Noble Gas? I keep coming back.
I
now.
know, I can't wait for
Yeah.
that to be done.
Yeah.
That'd be part of.
wanna see it,
I mean,
yes.
part of the long-term sustainability is something like a project like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're going forward.
So I think that it is a great project, and that could be something that we have. He would even come in here. I'll bet the developer
Talk
of that,
about
the landscape architect, because that's a huge scale that he's doing it on, but people can do that on a small scale. A rain garden, I do them a lot in designing. For residential landscapes, it's something that it's very easy to do. So if we can kind of encourage landowners to do this, to rather than just create a swale or direct water.
That goes with the value that you were talking about
Yeah.
too of.
Exactly.
So I guess this can also tie into the first point, like where you want to do more outreach.
Yeah.
Maybe once the project's done, and if the owner would agree, you could ask to do some kind of like educational walk or something through a project that had mitigation and creation measures, and in case anybody was curious about going through their own project, or like kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Just an idea.
Field trips. Yeah.
Yeah, field trip, yeah.
I think he wants to do that anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think once the people see it.
Yeah.
Once it's there, we can see it, and talk about it, and reference it.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
Yep, pictures.
Yeah.
Some of our brochures.
Do we have
Yeah.
our historic maps, our old wetlands maps, so that we can calculate how much of our total percentage of wetlands that we had 40 years ago is now been developed relative to how much of our wetlands that we have left?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. So we do have old maps that go back.
Yeah, we
quite a
have
ways.
very, very old maps. I got to do some digging in the dusty part of the shelves, but we definitely have our GIS you can use. It's got a measuring tool on there if you wanted to look at development projects that have been approved that are destroying wetlands. It would take a lot of calculations, but definitely a
Going through all
possibility.
the
Yeah.
applications.
Yeah. And it's even more hard when you have paper maps compared to now having a digital software to compute the analysis for you. So
Do you have your maps from before the highway was built?
probably I have to take a look. I'm sure we got them around somewhere.
Town clerk has all maps. And she
yeah.
has, in the state, they have
That's
all
great.
the maps from like
I'd
before
be
91.
interested in helping with the calculation of the net total loss of acreage from the highway, the development of the mall, and trying to see if we've used more than 50% of our total acreage. Hartford County has 16% of its total land is in wetlands, but they're not exactly clear how much has been lost already. So it would be interesting to see how much of ours has already been developed.
And that's an also great idea because the state's always looking for towns who are great role models in whatever program and law that they have. A great example would be the Aquifer program.
Yeah.
A couple of towns have really excelled in that program, so they're used as examples a lot. And I'm pretty sure having a calculation like that determined and figured out for our town would be a great booster for it. So.
Well, wasn't some of the original maps, weren't they more like an estimate? They said, well,
Yeah,
this is wetland. They don't really know if it was.
well,
but-
they were definitely flagged at one point. I'm not sure how on what process they used back then. There was many different ways to do it. But I'll just have to pull out those maps. Once I find those maps,
You can see
it'll
what
give
they
me
did.
more
Yeah,
It
information
was kind of
about
a
it.
new science then, so
Right.
it was kind of
Yeah,
loosey-goosey
and then
versus,
even though, like,
how
the
things are
regulation-
calculated today.
Exactly. And even when the regulations came out in the 70s, town 74, the flyover and the mapping part didn't really come into play until later. And GIS is still a relevantly new, it's a new field still, with growing opportunities and stuff, new technology coming out every day, especially for remote sensing. And remote sensing is something that they use for soil testing and vegetation and possible like wetlands and stuff like that. So
Do you have any expertise in that?
I do have a master's degree in GIS. Thank you. It's on my desk.
Just want to make sure that was on the record.
Thank you. Thanks.
Georgie will take care of this one.
I'm a little rusty. I'll give it a shot. If you buy a drone, I could definitely do it for
Oh, here we go. Back to the drone. Back to the drone.
you. You buy a drone, I can do all the analysis for you.
I'll fly it, you analyze.
Yeah.
All right. Next one was acquire land and or easements along freshwater brook, and I don't think we necessarily want to just say
Right.
just freshwater brook. I think maybe this will tie into that where we have lost wetlands and maybe now, of course, it says acquire, so it doesn't necessarily mean buy, but we do often have
Get a donation.
applications that people will grant us an easement or whatever. So that's certainly something, but certainly identifying the places where we need it more would be important.
And I know that the state does have conservation programs where you can, quote, purchase a property from, say, Farmer John Doe, of property along Freshwater Brook, and it essentially gets given back to the state as a conservation.
Yeah.
And then the town is reimbursed for the purchase of that property, and then it's like a permanent conservation easement on that. And that's when they put up those, those cute little signs that say, Desmond Ducky's, pond.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But those are programs that, again, are done through DEEP and the Department, DOAG.
Yeah, excellent. And I did.
Here through work.
Yeah. And I did skip. I skipped
skipped
meet the state goals. State goal of protected wetlands.
I figured we might be significantly below that percentage, statewide and all, but we can definitely modify it to something else.
Yeah. Well, I think
You could do county,
Yeah.
bring it down a level.
But I think it still ties into that, once we identify where we are, we can work towards it. So we can make a goal, say, over the next 10 years, we want to bring it this much closer. And then number 8 was to update the wetlands regulations to reflect new application.
So,
Not recently.
Yeah.
We just did it
yeah,
last
the
year, so-
regulations are pretty much the same. The only really thing that's changed is just case law that comes and goes. But in regards to everything else, it's pretty much the same thing.
So what we might want to put in here, though, is not necessarily update it, but create a plan for keeping it updated. So maybe it's reviewed every other year or something.
Yeah, biannual review or
Yeah.
triannual.
Yep, so you currently have that too when you do your review of officers, committees, and staff and bylaws. So it's always something you can do.
Yeah.
Luckily, the regulations for the agency has been pretty straightforward.
Right.
So,
I don't think any new ones have come out.
not that I know.
I know that Darcy was talking about, Darcy Winther at DEEP. She's the wetlands guru for you new people who don't know her. She was talking last year about the model regs being updated. And, of course, COVID is messing everybody up. So I'm sure that that's probably pushed off. But I can reach out to her and say, hey, how's
I
it
can
going?
reach out to her too if you'd like, if you're busy.
You busy? No.
I figured. But yeah, that's a great thing to put in the POCD, keep them updated as the state comes out with them. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Because you must get notified.
I do, yes. I also get notified if the state is doing pesticide applications or any fertilizers, and it's usually along wetlands courses, water courses, and farmland and lakes.
So in some of the old objectives, if you look at it in the POCD, this is page 51. The first one is, the second one is enhance public access to the Connecticut and Scantic River waterfronts. And then another one, the last one, is develop and link greenways through the town as a mainstay of Enfield's community design. And I think one of the things that has come up in the POCD meetings is this use of recreation in these lands. So I think that should also be part of our plan. Incorporated in there is how to make this restoration creation plan based on what we find from the history. To also incorporate, community design, community design that allows for better and safe recreation in those areas as well.
Isn't that something that the TOD covered with the new plan that's coming in for the train station and what they're looking for, the greenways and walkable and sustainables down at the river and more
Right.
public access?
Yep. But I think our plan should
Our plan covers the whole town, but
Right.
that's,
Yep.
really focused, and we can kind of piggyback on their thoughts and ideas and move them to, other places, put in, look at like picnic areas along the Scantic or,
But I think
improving around freshwater.
Yeah, we want to integrate our kind of aspect of it and how to protect those wetlands as we do this as well. You don't want to just put a pathway through a wetland and, because then you're not really preserving
Protecting
it,
it.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how can that be done? I think that's something that has to be investigated a little bit, and it's not as simple.
There is a balance, and by doing that, you're also getting the public more interested and they feel more vested.
Absolutely.
And they're like, okay, now I'm seeing, wow, this is really cool.
Yep.
This is great watching, these migratory birds, nesting and breeding, and holy crap, look, we have, eagles and, everything else. So,
Absolutely.
and by causing that awareness, you get people to get on board. Just my 2 cents.
Very knowledgeable.
It is a good one, yeah.
I like all this creativity.
Yeah.
Let it shine.
She does.
Let's see.
Yeah. I think, one of the old ones is protect prime agricultural soils from non-rural development and contamination.
So the Agricultural Commission has really, really weighed in
Okay.
on every point of agriculture and conservation.
Yeah.
And that was one of the points they addressed, and they have a whole plan for that goal.
Okay.
If Wetlands wanted to emphasize on it, you're more than welcome to do so.
So what's the process here, Kevin? All these ideas and strategies we're going to have are going
Yeah.
to go into our,
So I think we should try to, what everybody should do is any ideas that you have that we didn't discuss tonight, anything specifically. What?
If you wanted to talk about soil erosion, there were points on that too on page 53, if you wanted to. Just putting that out there.
Oh, let me finish just my thought here is put all your notes, your ideas, what you'd like to see, and send them to Georgie. And then that's where it'll kind of get into that, and then there'll be a draft, and then,
it's going to go into the book.
yeah, eventually.
Eventually.
So there'll be other people chiming in. It won't be just us. So it'll go to I assume, the whole committee that has changed over the course of the meetings significantly. So and they'll look at it. We'll look at it as a group and kind of
Talk it through.
talk it through there. What 443 is that what you're saying? No. What?
Yes, 4.3. That's for just monitoring soil erosion, which
Yes,
may
yeah.
help with
So
this
I
ordinance.
was looking at that one, continue not townwide monitoring of soil erosion. Certainly, I'm not sure how this is done. Is this remote sensing again? And is it just identifying where this is happening and reported, or certainly part of this comes into, like you said, people, can I cut this tree down? Well, if you're along a lake or a river or something, maybe not.
Yep. So their plan back then was that the new plan in the future, the town should evaluate the need to change land use or other regulations that have an impact on soil erosion. There are a lot of developed areas along brooks and rivers and streams that have very steep slopes, and as a result, a lot of their slopes are starting to erode away, and water courses are constantly changing because of climate change and the
Right.
increase in stormwater. And eventually, it could come to a point where those properties are just no longer viable for building or anything like that. And in situations like that, you could evaluate the need to change land uses depending on a current situation. So that is, you could potentially keep this suggestion in for the new POCD. It's a great suggestion to keep in, and then you could tackle it as it comes along
Yeah, I think it has to stay in. I think that it's a prudent portion of this that should definitely stay in.
But just note that it's something that should be approached with caution because the legalities that open up are astronomical.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Yep.
bear that in mind.
As usual. Anything you do.
And 4.33 is update street design standards to incorporate stormwater management features that prevent runoff or reduce the amount of water entering the storm sewer system. I'm sure the town engineer would be happy that we would change those things. Now, they do a good job, but I think it might be prudent to have something in there to make sure that we identify new techniques or technologies that might come into play to help protect things better.
For like catch basins
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And drainage patterns.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this thing. I can't remember where it is, but some scientists have created a way to clean trash from rivers and lakes. It's like a little net, and it floats on the surface of the water, and it makes kind of like a little suction black hole thing, and it just sucks in the water and just collects various items of debris that float by. Maybe you could, if you wanted to, incorporate some kind of cleanup investigations or measures for like Freshwater Brook, Scantic River, along some of the lakes. That would always be something you could incorporate. It would definitely help with this goal for new technologies to help with stormwater management and wildlife and pollution.
Yeah, and I think that would definitely tie into educating residents on the importance of wetlands as well.
I would think maybe the Department of Fisheries would have more information on that. 'cause
Definitely.
Of course, you have to be
Yeah,
I can
Conscious of that.
definitely incorporate them
yeah.
for our pamphlet.
That almost sounds like it would be a great, even a project to get the high school or something involved with.
So the Conservation Commission did something similar a while ago where they were planting, I think it was trees that fell down a few years back. And they just had like a volunteer day where they were planting trees and flowers in areas that needed it. The Wetlands Commission could always consider something like that, especially for like groups like Boy Scouts. You know, they're always looking for volunteers and community service hours.
Yep.
So clean the wetlands.
Well, they actually have to, part of their projects,
Definitely.
they actually have to do some environmental
Or even like
things.
college students who are trying to do a thesis in soil scientist or wetlands type thing. So lots of outreach opportunities you could do, especially if Hasnatuck down the street.
Yeah.
That too.
That's actually tougher than you think. We used to use them for the Enfield 4th of July celebration. It's tougher now.
Be afraid.
Yeah.
Do we have the ability to target specific parcels of the Freshwater Brook area that aren't developed that would be the most useful for us to be able to preserve so that Freshwater Brook stays flooded in its area and doesn't get out onto streets? Because those areas would be the area within Shaker Road, North Maple, and Bacon Road is a large parcel. It has quite a bit of the drainage. And then the area directly south of that, that has two small streets and runs south to where Freshwater Brook then joins the Jawbrook, are relatively undeveloped areas. And if they could be reserved as basically just overflow areas for the Freshwater Brook, it might avoid a lot of problems farther down at the intersection of Jawbrook and Freshwater Brook at Elm Street.
Depends who owns it, right?
Yeah, well, and that's part of identifying those areas, yeah.
I'm identifying those areas from my
That's all.
looking at
yeah.
that those would be very good areas if there was any way to get a conservation grant an easement
Well,
or purchase
the
them.
big problem with that is you would need the owner's permission.
Yeah.
You can't just go in and take it under eminent domain.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just.
Is there any way for some of those parcels that are for sale to leave industrial and go back into conservation?
That depends on the property owner. There is a conservation plan, and it's kind of tied in with our POCD, and if properties wanted to donate an easement or anything like that, then they can. There's certain requirements sometimes that they have to meet as well regarding that, but most times it's up to the property owner and who owns the land.
Yeah.
But definitely something we can look into,
Yeah.
because I'm sure that there's a lot of town-owned properties out there, so.
We also.
Well, there's a lot of areas, so I think it's identifying. It really goes back to that whole mapping and identifying, the values of those wetlands, and then, assessing how much we want to restore or we need to get back, or how much we've actually lost of the valuable, portions.
I'd like us not to lose sight of the Scantic River as well. Freshwater
Yeah,
Brook is very good, but also the Scantic River.
yeah, absolutely.
So maybe you
absolutely.
could add a goal where you coordinate more with the Conservation and Agricultural Commission, because they do a lot of volunteering around town with the rivers and cleanup processes, trees, stuff like that. So
And
if
let's
you
not
wanted
forget
to.
that other teeny tiny little river we've got, the Connecticut.
That too.
Yeah, that kind of,
For the property around it. Right?
yeah.
Yeah, maybe you could do like beach cleanup along the Donald Barnes boat ramp or something
Yeah.
like that. Whatever town-owned properties
Well,
we have.
once they finish the new bridge.
Yeah.
It'll be a while.
I saw what's underneath it, no way. I'm crazy, but I'm not stupid.
Oh, I drive over it every day, so yikes.
Excellent.
So that was pretty much all I had. If you wanted to add some more stuff, we can. And then next time I'll put all this in a readable format and you can review it again.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. Good
Yeah, excellent.
discussions.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel like it would be a disservice to kind of focus on any one area, that we have to look at the town as a whole
Yeah,
Yes.
in the POCD.
right.
Yes.
Sure. Turn your mic on. Yeah.
How does the POCD interact with the two previous plans from the Capital Region Natural Hazard Mitigation Plans to deal with flooding? Do we consider them at the same time?
Well, this is our plan. This is the plan of Enfield that, yeah.
These are Anfield's plans.
The POCD
No,
is on.
yeah.
Yeah, it's POCD.
But those,
The POCD is Enfield, the capital region is not.
that we prepared
The
reports for.
POCD is what we're dealing with.
Yeah,
We don't create the state stuff, they do.
yeah.
So it's do you know what POCD stands for? Yes. Okay. So that's kind of what we're, it could take that into consideration, but I don't know that would necessarily fall under just ours.
We don't do the flood hazard
Yeah, no,
mitigation
no,
stuff.
yeah.
I just wondered, if you could speak to action 4.4.2 and what thoughts are on that, more thoughts on that.
You mean the green building standards?
Yes.
Could you read it so you tell us what it is?
Well, it
Oh,
says
the book
create
will make
green building standards. The town of Enfield, this is from the old POCD, 2011. The town of Enfield should initiate a process to identify building standards that will help public and private development in Enfield be energy efficient and innovate in protecting land, air, and water resources. These standards should include BMPs for stormwater management. More information and resources available through the Connecticut DEP and the CT Green Building Council, the follow links. So I think this part of this is when I said to monitor new and upcoming technologies and techniques. That's kind of towards that.
Yeah.
That's focused on our part of it.
Yeah, I don't know if this comes from the state or not, being new, but I wonder if we have any ability or jurisdiction over how far away from wetlands when we're talking about, so I feel like it's different when you're talking about a residential area being 100 feet from wetlands versus a large building, and I'm asking if that's a state regulation.
Yeah,
I'm
that's-
asking, that's what I'm asking.
It's our
Yeah.
regulations.
Yeah.
Right, it's our regulations, but is it the town of Enfield regulations, or is it
The state.
State regulations?
Well, we can impact it. There are some towns that do have a
If like 200 or,
Some towns have
Yeah.
more.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we have any say in that as a.
We do have some say. It's something we
but
can.
yeah, but our regulations say 100.
Right.
Our
Right.
upland reviews-
But unless it's
Right.
the Connecticut River, then it's
200.
200.
Or,
Right.
or Scantic.
Right. You're talking about the upland review area.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, when is that looked at? When you do a regulations review?
Well, we haven't, when we review our regulations, that's where that would come up. I mean, what our regulations are pretty standard throughout the state. It's based off, our regulations now are really based off what the kind of updated state regulations. It took us a while to do it because we waited a long time for the state to update theirs because we wanted
match
ours to
that
be.
or to be similar,
Right.
yeah.
So,
The state of Connecticut issues a model regulations, what they propose
Yeah.
for towns to use as the base.
Right.
And then, of course, no two towns are exactly the same, so you need to go through and customize it to what fits your specific town. But I'd say probably 90% of the towns use the model regs as their base and do little tweaks here and there to it.
right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that clarification.
I'll just have to verify with state statutes to make sure the 100-foot requirement wasn't from the state and that it was from the town.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if it's state regulated, then we can't change it.
Right.
Right.
But another thing to keep in mind on that point that she brought up, well, you could think about like energy efficient buildings that have good stormwater management for BMPs. I know some new development in Massachusetts, for example, they've invested more in rain gardens and green roofs. So they have a lot more plants on their buildings, and they do they have better measures for stormwater management. So
Building. Isn't the buildings that have more P and Z?
engineering and building and stuff too,
get
but you
into
could
P&Z.
consider the stormwater management as part of it.
Right.
So it kind of ties in. A lot of these goals tie in a lot of the same commissions, a lot of different commissions. A lot of them will emphasize on the same one, like you did on the agricultural point.
Yeah.
So there's always input you can give here and there.
Yeah, because we can't regulate.
Thank you.
Right.
Right.
That's up to the developer too. I know that a lot of CVSs are lead metaled for high energy efficient buildings. So it's up to the developer mostly
Yeah.
on what they want to do with their building.
Yeah, and it's hard for us to give them any incentives. We don't have that power,
Right.
to be able to say, put in a rain garden and we'll.
We'll be happy.
I'm still struggling with these plans, our last 3 flood hazard mitigation plans. I don't understand, since they name all these water courses.
Oh, you are, sorry.
Do you want me to pass these along?
But I don't know what your question
Question
is.
is, yeah, I don't
They
understand the
they
question.
name all of our water courses and suggest how we'll deal with flood mitigation by conservation. They're pretty extensive. Are they not part of the POCD plan?
Not directly, no. No.
There are some points that focus on
Right.
flood mitigation measures, especially with climate change. And that's some of the goals we hope to include in our new POCD because they're not in the current POCD. So we hope to see a lot of new ones that come from the engineering department and the Conservation Commission.
But that's not us.
And don't they work with the AOCE too?
And they work with the state too.
Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah.
POCD is just an overview of what we as citizens want to see our town going towards in the next 10 years. Every 10 years, the state of Connecticut mandates that every town just get with their citizens and say, okay, what do you want your town to look like? Where do you want your town headed to?
And
that's
how
what
can
they
you make
do.
that happen?
Yes, yes.
And so part of it, so like when we talk about developing a long-term sustained wetlands program and meet state goals of protected wetlands. That all falls under this,
Yes.
under that.
And we work on it for the 10 years that it's active.
Can you clarify that you work on it? You mean work on the actual goals or
Like, yeah, like-
actually
yeah.
implement these things?
Yeah, well, we're going to put the goals in there, and then we're going to refer to them. When somebody comes in with an application that pertains to any of our goals, we're going to strongly urge and suggest that they look at this and try to integrate it with their program,
And
project,
the
excuse
bigger
me.
projects, the bigger.
Yeah.
The
they usually
POCD
do.
can't be considered as a factor of an application decision, depending on what's in the POCD and where the town's headed.
Right.
So
Right.
it's not like, it's not a regulation
big
they have
project.
to follow.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just something that the
a
town wants to
suggestion.
see. It's a vision.
Yeah.
So
So back to Ann's point, why would flooding not be part of the POCD for
It is.
wetlands and water course?
It is, but
But
that,
not
those
ours.
specific reports
Okay.
are not
Generic.
directly in this.
Okay.
Like I said, the developing a long-term sustainable wetlands program, part of that is identifying, like we said, where there might be erosion, because that's what that falls under. So, mitigating those things.
somebody
So-
did bring up a point about flood-prone properties being acquired by the town as they come. There's a couple of properties in Enfield that the town owns because that they don't want them to be developed because of the floodways and the wetlands. So there's not a lot, but there's a couple.
Where are those?
I don't know exactly, but
Okay.
as they
I'd be
come,
curious.
I've come through them. So
Yeah.
it was like 3 or 4 I've found so far. So there's a couple.
Thank you.
Because there's probably 1,000 of different reports that are related to wetlands of like that could be, that are impactful to what we do. But to try to put it in a POCD, then what you do is you confuse folks.
Right.
So it's too much in there. This is meant to be a broader overview of what we're trying to do. Those are more specific things that are involved with
Yeah.
making that happen. I'm not sure. You would have to look at that, and I'd have to go through the plan. I don't want to look at them right now, because we're talking about the POCD. That's a small portion of this, but we're looking at the bigger picture right now.
And as I'm looking at the POCD, I see that there's links.
Yep.
So perhaps a report like that
Would
may
be a
be a
link.
link
Yep.
within the POCD that
Exactly.
you could refer to.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
And it might be being worked on by another committee or another department as we speak.
Yes.
Like the Conservation Committee,
Yeah.
Correct.
Agricultural Committee, or
Engineering
Engineering,
Department.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
All
good.
right. Excellent.
That's a great start. I can definitely type up something.
So you're happy with us?
I'm very happy. The amount of creation is great.
Make a motion, we table this for another 2 months.
Second.
That was a joke.
But you do need a motion to continue.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will make a motion that we continue our discussion on implementation strategies for the POCD.
Second.
Any more discussion? Roll call?
Donna Corbin Savinsky.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Carrie Ann Howe.
Yes.
Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Ann Collins.
Yes.
7 in favor, motion passes. Next is new business. We have none. Enforcement reports, we don't have any.
I
Report
just
from
had a
the,
question on the enforcement report. LaCory, we don't know anything.
Well,
It's- it's
that would
in-
be on the.
Got a pending court
town
case.
attorney.
But in the meantime, though,
yeah,
Just
the
going
town
to-
attorney's working on
It's
it.
Just
all in the
going right
courts
along.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, he's obviously already violated his permit conditions, and he's just pending in court right now.
Right. So just for the record, just to update, do we know if the silt fencing has been repaired yet?
As of now, it has not.
Okay.
Of course not.
And I know Rick goes out and checks things and
A
reports to
lot.
the attorneys. and-
He's checked it a lot.
Yeah, unfortunately. Report of planning staff.
I have none at the moment. Oh, but I do have, you emailed me about the Connecticut Association of Wetland Scientists. We do have enough in the professional development part of our budget if you wanted to attend. It's a $5 fee.
Oh, that thing.
I would love to, unfortunately. It's during
Yeah,
awards
that's
day.
March. March
If you
9th
would
in
like
the
to
morning.
attend, shoot me an email so I can have, I can work with staff to set it up for your registration fee.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know if it's something that they're going to be recording and making available for later?
Not know yet.
'Cause
I will find out.
that would be great.
Yeah,
Because I can't.
I mean, I can
you
do
know.
it, but
I thought they said that there was going to be some kind of a recording if you couldn't make it.
So I don't know why I said I don't know. I have not heard anything yet. I would assume that it would probably be posted since it's a virtual meeting, but I can find out.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess we'd have to sign up shortly because it's next week.
Yeah.
So you have nothing else?
That's all I have.
Okay.
Do we have no new applications kind of coming in? Anything?
I do know that the silt fencing was installed on 1700 King Street.
Oh, okay.
He sent us pictures and stuff, and he's working on it. In regards to new applications coming in, I have no knowledge. I have had any of the possible inquiries, but no actual applications.
Okay.
I will move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn approved. Meeting adjourned.